Thank you, Josie. Well, what a great intro. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Thank you, everyone, to be here. I'm just happy to be here and able to provide context and be there for women of all backgrounds in the tech community. Thanks for being here for me. I want to thank the GDG Modesto Group for their invite. It is a delight to always be part of this community. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge that I'm currently speaking from the unceded territory of California, home of dozens of tribal nations. As we begin this event, we acknowledge and honor the original inhabitants of our various regions. Land acknowledgement is a critical step towards working with Native communities to elevate partnership and inclusion in the protections of their cultural resources and homelands. Let's take a moment to honor these ancestral grounds that we are in and collectively gather upon and support the resilience and strength of all Indigenous people that have shone worldwide. The following talk only represents my personal opinion. These are not the views of GDD nor the views of the company I currently contract with. I want to ask the following questions to the audience. I will ask this first and then count down from 3, and I would like you all to then press enter so we all have our responses out at the same time, kind of waterfall style. From 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, how hopeful do you feel about the progress of diversity in tech in 2023? Let's just, take a moment to put our answers, and then when I count from 3, we can hit all enter. 3, 2, 1. All right, so I'm getting 3, 4. Okay, great. 2, there. 3, 3. All right. I feel like we were feeling a little bit lukewarm, right? It's been the beginning of a year that certainly has started in not of the best when it comes to providing that stability and security we'll cover this year. The second question I have is from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest. How do you feel about the inclusion initiatives where you currently work at? Think of 2023 and think of like what how do you feel seeing last year and seeing this year starting? I'm gonna count down from 3, and then I want everyone to give a response. 3, 2, 1. We got 2s, we got 4s, we got 3s. Okay, there is definitely a road that we need to cover here, and I'm going to talk more about it, but this is great to know. There is definitely a wide spectrum right now, and it all depends on the community that we're exposed in. Yes or no question. Do you feel supported at your current place of work to be completely outspoken about your needs and able to provide ideas comfortably around inclusivity? Think about this and think about it in the perspective of what you've seen in the last year and what you want to see in this new year. Now I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, everyone. All right, I'm getting yes, no, yes. Okay, that's great. And I'm sorry to hear about the no's and yesish. That's a great way to feel. I feel a lot of us feel that way. Thanks for the honesty, Daisy. And lastly, if you can describe it quickly, what would you like to learn or walk away with today from this conversation? If you can put it in maybe a quick sentence, let's go ahead and think about it. I'm gonna give it some time, and then we're gonna say 3, 2, 1. Advice and knowledge. Okay, this is great. That's definitely what I'm here for. How can we support tech equity? More concrete tools for helping build diversity in teams, understanding and how to support others. I am all here for this, and this is what we're going to cover. All right, so Josie.
All right. Well, it's why don't we dive into the first area here? Hold on. I somehow ended up losing my page here. All right. So why don't we dive into that first topic, which was building a diverse tech workforce with allyship and self-advocacy. So how can we as women in tech and underrepresented communities actually create this conversation and make sure it's something that's actually happening on a day-to-day in our workplace?
Well, you know what? This topic is what I'm all about. This is the reason why I am still here, to be completely honest with you. I almost became part of the following statistics. 56% of women leave the tech industry. Given the 2 recent massive layoffs in my field with COVID and the current tech economic downturn, I was ready to apply to become a registrar in an emergency room or a court translator. I was honestly tired of feeling like a cyclical worker. But then I realized that if I walked away, I'd be walking away from having the ability to impact the future and help the next generation. I believe that it is an be loud and be visible in order to open the door and create opportunities for one another. We gotta lift and support each other. And when one of us gets a seat at the table, all of us win. Now, I know companies are in this diversity train, but let's really break it down. This is real talk. Tim Cook, as you guys might heard that name, recently said that there is no excuse for not having more women in tech and leadership, and that diverse workforces yield to great companies. Well, that is really wonderful to hear, right? Is this for real or is this lip service? How can we make this actually happen? Well, this is my opinion. As I just said, 56% of women leave tech after 20 years of giving them their all. I mean, we really put our name there. We throw the towel. We go in and out each day with passion. And yet we leave, more than half of us. I personally believe the number will get higher after all that is happening in our community. Why is this happening, you would ask? Well, we're simply done with being treated unfairly and in an inequitable way. We both have discussed, Josie, the McKinsey report calling this phenomenon the great breakup. Women in leadership roles are switching roles more so than men, taking on part-time opportunities or even fractional opportunities. This is not just affecting women, though. 37% of the larger tech community are currently leaving tech because they feel unfairly treated. While I do strongly believe that this is not our job or responsibility to teach those around us how to be allies, it is all on all of us to research and learn, right? But it is important that while we create visibility, we advocate for ourselves every step of the way with facts and through conversation, inclusivity, empathy, and kindness. Let me give you an example. I am a Latina woman, very proud Chilena, who's light skinned and misidentified constantly. I also have a very thick accent. I'm sure you could tell in the beginning when my nerves are high, my accent comes through. Now, as a recruiter, I've had a ton of companies reach to me. They enjoy what I have to say. They love my resume, my profile. They get really excited and hype me up up until the interview, but then completely change their demeanor in their interviews as I start speaking, as I continue speaking. Sadly, a ton of companies out there do not want their client-facing folks having a thick accent while some embrace it. I feel I constantly have to educate those around me about who I am versus their expectations when they see a white presenting Latina in the screen. I also have to deal with angry Latina stigma, as my written communication tends to be dry and the way I speak direct, or it can be in short format. You're helping me tons, Josie. Thank you. The reality is that most people don't know that English is one of the four languages I understand. I am fully bilingual in English and Spanish, and I manage conversational German and Italian. I say this not seeking sympathy, but to express that we're no longer fill one box. We're all of the above, and sometimes we can't find a place where we belong, as we're not belonging to one community or another, right? This is where cross allyship and self advocacy come from. We have got to show the world that there are many spectrums of us in our identities. While navigating a world where, as women, we feel like the need to overly explain a point, battle bias feedback, having people speak for us, or men making constant assumptions about our capabilities, while being mansplained to after sharing an idea, being called feisty, micromanaged, not to mention other racially biased, gender biased microaggressions. This phenomenon is something that you have taught me, Josie. It's called death by a thousand paper cuts. These microcuts are what are driving us out of tech, or even if we stayed in this field, creating a sentiment of protectiveness, loss of drive and motivation, or willingness to contribute. These factors feed into our imposter syndrome, and they can create defensiveness and subconsciously prevent us from getting a seat at the table.
Absolutely. And, we're going to circle back on the paper cuts in a minute because I actually think that that's a really important topic to dive into. But before we get there, I really want to talk a little bit more about the state we're in and, talk about why it's so important to build an equitable workforce, right? And, Virginia listed some statistics, about McKinsey and the Great Breakup. And there's other sad numbers going on around here, right? The Reykjavik Index, which is an annual leadership survey, and it actually compares how men and women are viewed in leadership roles, actually saw a decrease and trust in women's leadership in the last year. For the statement, I would be extremely comfortable with a woman CEO as for my company. In the G7 nations, that actually went from 54 to 47%. And so, and also, specifically in tech, the Women Tech Network actually did an analysis of the recent layoffs and noticed that within the tech industry, 69.2% of those laid off happened to be women. And so we have so much work to do, and this is such an important thing that we should be focused on. So Virginia, do you want to talk about why?
Yeah, I mean, this is totally frightening if you ask me. I feel that this has been particularly highlighted after layoffs as well. Layoffs not only have signified companies either dismissing DEI departments, severely cutting budgets, but also caused teams to put DEI strategy in a shelf to focus on critical activities while teams operate very lean. There's currently a handful of companies, thankfully, still working properly with this mission, like the company that I currently am under contract with. But let's get back to the beginning here. Here are some examples. The Google Photo app previously labeling Black male feature faces as primates. The Apple Health app originally not including female hormonal cycle tracking or menstruation tracking. Amazon's recruiting AI system biased against women as the underlying data that it was originally built on was primarily composed of male resumes. I always say a diverse workforce creates a diverse, effective product, which will permeate and cater to a more broad spectrum client base, which yields to profitability. I know it's a mouthful, but it makes sense. When we include people of color, underrepresented communities, and women in these teams, we're contributing to this effect that I just mentioned. Some more facts for all. Inclusive teams are most likely to thrive in a recession given this economic downturn. And to me, this is super insightful. As a team, we'll perform 33% better and have an inclusive leader that is mostly engaged when you have that inclusive culture. Inequity is currently costing the tech industry $16 billion per year from people leaving as an effect. This is completely sobering to me. And it also makes me want to work harder. Josie.
Yeah, and this is so important. And so one of the things I talk a lot about is the fact that we need to be building inclusive and high-performing teams. That's the way that we retain our diverse talent and build better products. And inclusion and high performance are actually, they go hand in hand. But yet, I have a 3-phase framework that I think about when it comes to building inclusive and high-performing teams. And I say, phase 1 is it starts with becoming a more inclusive leader yourself. Phase 2 is about creating an inclusive culture where you're starting to create your core values. And then phase 3 is really where the magic happens. That's really about, operationalizing this, putting it into tying it back to your business goals and metrics, and making sure that you're holding your leaders accountable to these things. And, I think this is really crucial in this workplace. So, Virginia, do you want to talk a little bit more about how we can embrace this inclusivity through these high-performing teams?
Of course. I think that, the trifecta you mentioned of leadership, culture, and the operational greatness is what we're all about, right? I mean, and everyone is up for that. Everyone subscribes to that. Everyone wants that. But you cannot do it without, high-performing teams that are based on inclusivity. And you definitely have taught me a lot about this since this is what your business is about. And through conversations, with you, previous clients, and stakeholders and leaders in the industry. First off, let's tackle basics. We all want a team where we feel confident, where our ideas are valued, and where we can speak up and positively create change. All while communication is empathic both ways, and there's no fear in expressing our opinions, right? We all talk diversity as a priority, but inclusion should be right up there as well. What I just described before is a great start to define that inclusivity factor. It involves all of us, and with inclusive leadership, it also focuses on the fact that we all have biases, with a focus on our need to slow down to catch these biases, analyze them, question where they come from, educate ourselves on doing better, and finally creating processes where others will, be able to apply this thinking and eliminate these biases altogether. This is a way that I think we can all lead equitably and create an environment where we all feel safe enough to thrive and belong. Sadly, as a result of not prioritizing inclusivity, we're seeing a phenomenon of women not getting as technical, clear, and factual feedback as men. For example, Latin and Black employees generally get more feedback that is biased and not actionable. 40% of women of color have been questioned in the area of expertise as a result. These facts really matter. And I could even debate that this is a strong reason why we do not see much diversity in higher roles. We should focus on feedback based on factual evidence, describing instances thoroughly, and proposing ways to improve specific behaviors. In order to create equity first, we need to acknowledge our vulnerability. We have to look at the mirror. Knowing that, in all of these levels, we might never have the answers. We'll definitely fail at times. And knowing that even still, we can all walk towards a common goal of improvement. This is just pretty much staring at the mirror and understanding that it starts with all of us. We also need to elevate collaboration, and I honestly do not mean this like what we all think of collaboration, right? We always think of like working cross-functionally to, successfully complete a task, or working on meeting your KPIs, and or reaching out across the aisle and having visibility if you're interested in like switching jobs or promotion. It's none of this. I think it's learning and like how to really support one another and having open and transparent communication where we can bring up those improvement areas. Here's an example. I recently brought up to my manager that we should say female self-identified when referring to women in order to create inclusivity. And I was shocked that he warmly received it and appreciated it. I was terrified to correct my manager, especially when starting a new role. And we haven't really created this rapport. We really don't know each other really well yet. But it was such a refreshing and encouraging way to grow a relationship and made me feel like I mattered. My ideas and suggestion mattered. And, it definitely felt like a great beginning to a strong relationship. I felt like a win-win if you ask me. We should also focus on feedback going both ways, and that is all about improvement and growth. Instead of judgment, blame, and shame, which is commonly associated with feedback, unfortunately. This, coupled with thorough, factual, concise feedback, could arguably lift so many hurdles we all face when aiming for a promotion or even for self-improvement.
Absolutely. I love these examples that you shared. And, we talked about leaders and how they can build, inclusive and high performing teams at a high level. But there's a lot of ICs on this call. So, what can individual contributors do to self advocate in advancing their careers, given the fact that these biases and hurdles happen, and help the leaders in building their more inclusive teams?
I really love this question. You know, I know that as an individual contributor, we might have fear to speak up, especially those of us who might, have a personal fear of speaking up, being your accent or dyslexia or ADHD or any factor, right? That like it's just something, it's a hurdle or it's a determining, obvious barrier between you and the world. I think that, this is definitely terrifying. This definitely makes us feel like we might not even have a chance to be heard. But we have to understand that speaking up is not about being the loudest person in the room or even the most like perfectly spoken person. It's about providing context, education, and honestly support across the board. An exercise that I always like to point out when I coach individual contributors is journaling. I enjoy writing down challenges or specific times where I felt improvement can be done. Next, researching or relying on your professional network for other points of view is a huge fountain of information. I couldn't say that I have, gotten here without this. My learning and support resources are colleagues in the industry that I follow who provide tons of education. And I also enjoy researching books about the issues at place or listening to podcasts. Then I love to discuss my findings with mentors like you and my fellow DEI and talent acquisition professional friends and learn from their experiences as well. I think that honestly, it takes a village to really crack this code, and so far it's working for me. Supporting myself with a solution or recommendations to a problem help me flag and talk through these topics effortlessly with managers and leaders, and most often having my thoughts received positively. And those who ask me is that if this method or similar methods are not received well, then it's not about changing yourself or your ways. It is simply time to change your environment. A place where this level of thoughtful communication isn't praised It's a place that is not interested in progress nor invested in your people. Don't let this type of negativity silence you. Additionally, when it comes to feedback and promotion, I always advise all to track their progress. Make sure that in your one on ones with any of your managers, you ask for feedback on how your performance is going, how you're doing as one with the company culture, or what are recommendations where you can focus to excel. Ask for feedback also from those who you cross collaborate with. And schedule retros to ask for guidance or mentorship. I think that a ton of people don't use this resource when there is like a potential to have transferable skills to go to another team, be curious about a promotion in another completely different team in the company. And you could even realize like what you think you love is something else, like it's not really what you're doing. I mean, I've met tons of people who go from recruiting to project management or product, and they did it simply by just reaching out across the aisle and being curious. I think curiosity is a great indicator, a great spark for progress. Having this information can help you create a great self-analysis. I personally love SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunity, and threat method, to understand where I'm at currently and what I need to do where I want to go. Personally, I also strongly recommend to practice self-care. As women, and especially underrepresented women, doing all of this can be exhausting and mentally draining for us. Self-care is a chance to recover and clear your mind from clutter, to stay focused and understand that after building an equitable professional life for us in our community, this is just really a percentage of who we are, although a very important percentage. Let's not forget that we are more than our careers or places of work. We're beings with interests, emotions, community connections, and most importantly, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. I personally have a life coach, a therapist, and a fitness coach to help me de-stress. And I have a wonderful partner, family, and dog to rely on for decompression and tap into that feel good, happy, emotional self. Josie, as you always said, self care is sacred.
Absolutely. That was like on my wall for the longest time. And so I wanted to talk about a couple of the things you mentioned around feedback, right? Because especially as women and minorities, feedback can be a double-edged sword. And I just want to bring that up to the table, right? We get biased feedback all the time. I work with women leaders. They tell me they people say they're not assertive enough, they're not aggressive enough, you're not technical enough, right? And it's a barrier, right? Virginia brought up, oh, you sound angry, right? And here's the thing: feedback is a gift, but you don't have to accept it, right? And so it's about taking the time to process, network with people. This is why it's so important to have that community, right? You want to find other people who you trust to have these conversations with. And then the other part is, take a step back though and say, is there maybe a 10% truth in something in this feedback, right? Not, again, we get so much biased feedback. I am not saying you have to accept it, right? But sometimes there are areas of improvement, but for us, it's not usually the obvious feedback. It's about digging into the feedback and being like, where is my actual area of improvement in here, right? And seeing what you can focus in that. And so it makes it more challenging and it makes it harder, but you can figure out how, to do that. And so this is great. And like I said, I love self-care. I talk about mindset shifts all the time. I actually, a lot of my coaching clients I tell them, like, I might sound a little woo, but we're going to talk about visualization. And it's so true. Like, there's so much that we can actually do to like change our mindsets. And so we touched on a couple of these things, but I think this is such an important thing to dive into more. What can individuals do to thrive in the current market?
So before I answer that, I love what you said. It is true. It's like feedback is dissectable. And there is a degree of truth in accountability. Of course, our brains are genetically wired to be biased towards negativity. This is survivalism. This is why people were able to survive living in a cave and having animals coming at them and trying to eat them every night. This is why we created fire, to illuminate us and protect us. Survivalism is the base of evolution, and it is biased towards negativity. I could talk about it all day. I'm a little bit of a brain nerd. And, I think that this is totally something that I always invite everyone to always look at. All of our behaviors come from a genetic standpoint. And I think that, unprogramming ourselves to take things with a grain of salt, to understand that this is just part of human nature. And some people are more involved than others because they come to talks like this or because they educate themselves. And then there are those who don't, is super important in order to understand what serves us from this feedback and what doesn't. So we really want to make sure that if you walk away from anything, it's about the self, introspection that you do when analyzing every single piece of communication that everyone gives us. And don't be your worst enemy. We all, women especially, we are so hard on ourselves and we think that all the lies that we're told are true and the lies we tell ourselves. And, I invite you to walk out tonight with understanding that we are wired toward negativity. Not everything it's as hard as it sounds, and everything in this world has a solution. And it does take a village. And I'm going to talk about that right now with these tips that I'm going to provide. In my opinion, these are the tools to keep in mind. Networking is the first one, right? Elemental. As women, we don't do enough, and some of us can feel deeply uncomfortable with reaching out or putting ourselves out there. I am guilty as charged. Trust me, I think like I sound like a Muppet and I'm so scared of talking and who's going to take me seriously with this accent. Or sometimes I don't know if you notice, I tend to just, even when speaking, I tend to have a little bit of like an impediment. And I really just do my hardest to make sure that I do my best. And then the rest is for people to take it or not. And I think that that's a bias. That's like the main thing to know when you're in fear of putting yourself out there. The worst that can happen is that half of the people you aim to contacted you back. Believe me, there's so many people out there dying to just support one another. I do believe in the power of community. There are many ways to network, right? One can attend events like this, virtually or in person. In-person events are back, and they're great because you can be able, there's always people wanting to work the room. That's how I met Josie. She walked up to me and was so freaked out of talking to her because I was fangirling. And next thing you know, she's like one of my best friends. So don't lose your fear. There's people who are approachable out there. I love to talk to everyone. I love when people see me or contact me on LinkedIn. My virtual door is open. Tons of women I know love this too. Reach out. Hey, I love this article you posted. I love your insights. Like, can you recommend me to further articles because I'm looking to better myself in this area? Or, I'm a recruiter. I always wanted to look into UX UI design. What can I do? Where can I go to learn more about it? Or what have you, right? Always do that. Curiosity is the seed to innovation and self-innovation as well. The second thing that I can think of is building a personal brand. I totally get it that for some of us, posting about ourselves can be overwhelming. And I always say that I will get sick of myself before anyone else gets sick of me when I do regular content, right? I get so sick of myself. I do not even look at my feedback because in my feed page, feedback, nothing for 3 days just because I'm like, ugh, eek. And we all have that, right? It's part of imposter syndrome. And it's something that we've been told. But lose your fear. Because honestly, when you lose that fear, you go out there, whatever happens will fall into the right place. This can be something as simple as sharing a personal experience that can impact others. Also display our expertise and knowledge or interacting with existing content. I personally really enjoy creating conversations on different Slack groups that I am part of by simply contributing to a post and connecting with others through it. I mean, that's how I've met a ton of people that now are mentors and friends and connections. And this formula has helped me get every single job I've had in tech. None of the jobs that I've applied to, I've ever been called back to. It's always been Virginia, she's looking for a job, and hey, I'm a recruiter. This friend referred me to you. They say that you're the person to talk to for a new job. It happens. The power community is real. You're more than your resume. Everyone reads those. They all sound the same at some point. Connect and network and just talk away. Honestly, it's refreshing once you do it. Also, on the contrary, it's completely okay to take a break from online interactions for a period of time. I know that we all preach about, oh, you are your feed, and if you're not an influencer, you're not going to get a job. And it feels true these days, right? The influencers get all the glory, and it's not true. I mean, I think that those that post less by more thoughtful posts they go far just as much. I don't post as much as I do, but it's all about the people I connect with, right? And I'm trying to do more about it. I've seen people with presence online who make this genuine, impactful posts every so often, and they're short and sweet. But I've seen stories of people benefiting from this by just being invited to apply to jobs or recognized in their workplaces for skills and knowledge. It really helps. So again, don't be afraid. Do the short and sweet. Take a break if it starts to get toxic. I personally think that it's all about that balance. And it's not about forcing yourself to be the best. It's about finding your comfort zone and exercising it, because it's just crazy out there. There's too much information and everyone is in the rat race, and you got to do what's best for you. Another thing that I always like to say is joining community. I love community. It takes a village. The power of community is truly invaluable. There's so many communities out there to collaborate, to learn from one another, and volunteer our time. These communities often offer career support, events to network with employers, mentorship sessions, and it is a great way to learn more about the industry that we are in. I also want to footnote that within this criteria, you gotta build your own go-to village. Mine is comprised of mentors, mentees, colleagues, and those who might not be professionally aligned with me, but who I look up for their own impressive experiences and advice. Like one of the people are in the audience is my best friend since we're 15. She's a doctor. She's brilliant. I don't know half about medicine and what she does, but the fact that she's so eloquent helps me speak better because she's a woman of color, and I honestly admire the way she speaks. It's incredible. So I think that, that's one of the examples of like, you don't have to, as a recruiter, I don't have to have in my village other recruiters. It can be anyone else. It's just people that you respect and that walk you through life with their honesty and with their expertise and with their love, and they make you better people. A soundboard is something that I always encourage everyone to build in order to grow and extend their potential. It will take you so many crazy, wonderful, wild places. Another thing that we don't talk about is building the resilience and strength. We live in a perfectly imperfect world. And when we want immediate results, it is not happening anytime soon. Sorry to say this, but it is true. If we look at the inequity status quo in a matter of years, experts and research agree that we're about 115 years away from true equity. We have got to build patience, resilience, understanding in one another, and trust that all that we're doing so to contribute to equity will lead for a better tomorrow, and for us, for our community, all those around us. And, the last thing I have to say about this is realizing that career progression is not linear. Like, as women, especially women of color, we have been conditioned to just follow this path to emulate, and it is not like that at all. It's about your own path. It's about the community you have. It's all the things that I said plus this. This is particularly something that most of us in tech can totally relate to, right? Our career path should be comprised of success and failure. But failure here is simply redirection. We got to reclaim the word. We got to twist it around and work it to our advantage. Also, it is completely okay to follow a non-traditional path. Switch between management and individual contributing roles. Step down from companies and switch fields. Let me give you an example. I was a CEO of a company for about a year. I think it's when Daisy and I met around that time. I stepped down because it just wasn't. I feel that it wasn't a toxic environment because it was the only woman in leadership. I felt tokenized, but also I felt like it wasn't for me to just directly manage a team of people. I'm more of a principal person where I influence but not managed. And so to some people, to step back just had led me to not be considered for opportunities. And it is not failure. It's just me reclaiming myself and doing what I'm best at, right? This is definitely part of our self-discovery. And again, with the right tools and communication, this can make for a terrific resume displaying a broad spectrum and fountain of talent. I definitely want to talk about this special tool that has empowered me to really reclaim my path and be okay with that crazy non-linear path. It's called OwnTrail. Shows, we love us some OwnTrail. The CEO is a professional friend of ours, and their community is incredible. Katie is just a genius in what she created. This app is basically a visual tool where you can enter successes, setback, life events, and model your life timeline comprised of personal and professional achievements. Seeing life modeled this way has empowered me personally to embrace my path, to acknowledge areas where I can be a better professional in person, and strive to always do my best. Also, the visual always helps me craft great responses on job interviews. I totally encourage you to check it out. It's called Own Trail. It's a great app. So once we recap with all these things that I have said, dissect it. Do what I just said and dissect this advice. Dissect this feedback. This is completely about what you can take out of this and what works for you. I'm just sharing the tools that I have seen work for me, the research that has worked, and the people that I have been around. And these are the secrets of ways that we have all worked to build this inclusivity and to build visibility. The only thing that we can all do at the end of the day is to work hard, to occupy space as women, especially women of color, and educate those around us and have that patience, have the resiliency, and always do self-care. Josie, I want to give it back to you.
Yeah, thank you. And those were a lot of great tips, and it made me think of a number of things. And I was writing. If you saw me writing down while you were talking, it's because it made me think of things that I wanted to share. So, the first one was, Virgginnia Buccioni is the CEO of Girls Who Code, and she wrote an amazing book called Brave Not Perfect, and she has a TED Talk too on the same topic, and she recently reposted about it on LinkedIn, and it's just like there's such a powerful story in there, which is, they mentor girls to teach them how to code, and usually it's a class, right? And so she said that a common occurrence that would happen is the instructors would go up to a girl after about 20 or 30 minutes, and they'd raise their hand and say, "Hey, I'm struggling. Can you come help me?" The instructor would go look at the girl's screen and would see a blank screen with nothing on it. But then she hit undo a few times and noticed that the girl had actually coded a lot of stuff. But because she couldn't figure out how to make it work, she actually deleted all the code because she would rather not show a mistake and not be perfect. And I think as women, this doesn't just go magically away when you step into your first meeting and you step into your first job, right? That feeling is there. So part of this, especially for all the women in the room, it's let's learn to be a little bit more brave instead of focusing on that perfect paradigm, right? Another thing that Virgginnia talked about was building your personal brand, right? And I have a couple of things that I tell to people about this. The first one is, you can go read all about how to optimize your LinkedIn or your Facebook or your Instagram strategies, and they're going to tell you should post X number of times a day, and if not, blah, 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 blah. And I say this about social media strategies. The social media strategy that works is the one that you like to do. So if that means you like to do video lives, then go do your video lives. If you like to write content, write content. If you prefer to be on Instagram and share pictures and photos, do that. Because honestly, no matter what crazy plan somebody might give you that's going to be the optimized, perfect social media plan, it doesn't matter if you're not actually going to take action on it. So that was the other one. And then finally, I do have a great personal brand building story that really highlights the power of building a personal brand. So a few years ago, when I was VP of software engineering, I ended up following this woman on LinkedIn. And she was a stay-at-home mom who had just finished a boot camp. And on LinkedIn, on a daily basis, she was actually posting about her experiences of finding a job. She shared her interview successes and failures. She actually even shared a whole video of a practice interview that she completely flopped, but then talked about how she improved. And after doing this for about 3 months, she actually landed a job because they had seen over those posts that she knew what she was doing. She could obviously do this job. She didn't have to actually interview for them. They reached out and said, "Hey, can we hire you as a contractor? Because we've seen the work you can do." And that is the power of being willing to be vulnerable and build a personal brand.
Totally. I agree. And I think that, reverting back, it's don't be afraid of making mistakes. Embrace that feeling, focus on the journey, right? Not the destination. And we can talk all about optimization and being perfect. but it is all about what you want to do. You own your narrative. You pick up what you need and you dissect what you need. And like, not everything is for everyone, but you do what works for you. And that authenticity is what makes people want to work with you, and it makes you trustworthy, and it makes you authentic, and it makes you approachable. And it is just you the only person that you're stressing out when you try to be this perfect self is yourself. And then it also comes across as unauthentic. So think of this and like definitely use it upon reflection, and hopefully you can be able to exercise this as well. And then of course share your failures. It's about honesty and authenticity. So I definitely want to thank you, Josie, for help moderate this. You are like an amazing human and one of my best friends, and I'm so lucky to have you. And I want to thank GDG and all those in the audience. And of course, you can find me with the same name on LinkedIn. My virtual door is always open. I love to mentor. I love to coach. I like to provide advice, and I also like to listen. Sometimes you just need someone to listen to me, and I'm always going to be there for my community. I strongly believe in women lifting one another. Also, check out the company that I'm currently contracting with, Paylocity. We are hiring, and we're doing very well. Paylocity careers. If you find something you like, message me. Try to connect you with the right person. Josie, where can we find you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, so feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. I also just launched my YouTube channel a few weeks ago, and so I've been doing LinkedIn Lives on a weekly basis, covering the topics of empowering women in tech. And so I think I've got over 40 videos already from previous podcasts, talks, and other events that I've done. So that's also a great resource to check out. And like I said, I'm a woman leadership and tech coach. So if you're struggling with any challenges, please feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to chat. And I also have a large network. So if you're job hunting or need a connection or an introduction, that's the other way to leverage your network. Reach out to people you know and ask them to connect you. So if anybody needs an introduction somewhere, let me know.
Yeah, let us know. We're here to encourage you and be there for you. So last 10 minutes, I want to ask you this question, another waterfall. Has your perspective in your own power changed after hearing this conversation? Yes or no question. We're going to hit 3, 2, 1. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. And also, if you can walk out with one word, intentions are about one word. What is the one word of intention that you're going to walk out of this conversation with? Mine would be humility, because I am so humbled to have the privilege to speak and to share my human experience. What would be yours? 3, 2, 1. Capable, mentor, hope, brave, empowerment, perseverance, motivated, boldness. That's right, Nelly. I love it. Oh, well, this is fantastic. I want to yield it to the community. What can we answer? How can we help? How can we empower you? How can we support you? All right, we got Q&A tab. Okay, there you go. So we can do general or the second tab, which is Q&A. Don't be afraid, please. This is an open forum. We already have we passed the correctness and politeness barrier a long time ago in this talk.
Hi, I'd love to ask a question. So a lot of things you talked about is obviously something that I've been through in my career, in terms of not feeling technical enough and all the different kind of barriers that we face. When I became a team lead, it was really important for me to champion the women and the different minority groups in my team to try and help uplift them. And I was a little bit disheartened after about a year when I heard the most technical woman in my team tell me that she felt that she wasn't technical enough, despite having received a promotion only a few months before. Does anyone have any advice about, I guess, helping, like spreading that message? Like, obviously it's always a journey for ourselves to take that message, how to really get through to others and help them feel supported and help them to undo some of those internal barriers and external barriers and things like that as well.
I love that, and thank you, Rachel. So as a non-technical person in tech, I can say this because like Josie's technical, so I'll give you the non-technical perspective. You know, it is about authenticity. I research what I don't know, and what I cannot answer by my research, I ask. I rely on my community. And again, it is a syndrome of that imposter syndrome. I'm not technical enough. I'm not the smartest cookie in the jar. You don't have to be. You don't have to be the smartest or the loudest or the know-it-all. You just have to be a contributor. You have to be a human being, and you have to be empathic and kind. And I think that, you know, that is a value that a lot of people see. And I think that we need to stop judging ourselves like this unless we hear a specific form of feedback saying that we need to improve something in technicality. Don't buy that on yourself. Don't believe it. Don't believe the general feedback. You're capable and you can do this. And you know what, at the end of the day, if you keep telling that to yourself and you keep exercising your knowledge and working in what you love, you will get there. And I have no doubt that this person you're talking to, and even you, are like these amazing leaders and technical people. So I mean, I really hope that, you know, for me, like that's a formula that has helped me. The self-education, going to my village, going to my community, putting myself in situations that challenge me to like overcome fears, even with speaking. So I really hope that it helps. Josie, what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, and I mean, I think this is something in our technical lives we're always going to run into, right? When I left Apple in early 2018, I thought I was an awful manager. I thought, even though literally as I was leaving, I had people tell me I was the best manager they'd ever had. I thought I was not technical enough to have cut it at Apple, and that's what was part of it. And I thought I was just done with these biases. I just like didn't want to deal with this anymore. I realized I love technology. I've been playing with computers since I was 5 years old, and I was not going to let a bunch of men basically shut me down from an industry I was so passionate about. And so I think it goes back to a couple of the things that we talked about earlier as well, is when you are the only one in the room, you get in an echo chamber of reinforcing that you are not technical enough. And I see this in my coaching clients. It is fascinating because obviously as a, being a VP of engineering, I worked with a lot of men. And I've also and I'm now coaching a lot of women. And the very surprising difference is the men will show up and say, Josie, I want that promotion. How do I sell myself to get that promotion? The women will show up to me and say, Josie, what skills do I need to go get that promotion? And I stop them and say, you do not need to get any extra skills because we are way over mentored in this as women in tech, right? It is about having the confidence in yourself. And then going and joining communities with other women who will share that they are going through these same challenges can really help you feel better and thrive too. And so, Rachel, there is this amazing women's leadership community called SheTO. It's sheto.org, and it's for women engineering leaders in tech. There's over 1,000 of us in there, and it is so supportive, and it is amazing. And just seeing how much people help each other, right? And so those are some of the things that I would say. And it is an uphill battle, right? And so this is part of why it's also about building that resilience, right? Because we are going to face these challenges. They are going to come up. It's not going to become perfect overnight. It might not get better, and we might not get to 50-50 equality in our lifetimes, unfortunately, right? And so we do have to keep fighting for this.
We do. And always remember, like, a lot of the answers lay in a more simpler place, which is community. And your head is the only barrier, and is the only place where you're telling yourself this. And the comparison is real. And break those schemas, free yourself. You're so much better, and you're stronger than you think you are. Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I have a comment. You talked a lot about mentorship, and you mentioned, I heard you mention a couple of times how you have mentors and how they've helped you throughout your career. And it was just really refreshing for me to hear that, because I kind of do the same thing. I've actually been asked, like, don't you have enough mentors, or don't you have enough people that you look up to? And the answer is no. There's always more. There's always more incredible women that I keep meeting as I build my community, and as I meet more women in tech.
Everyone is in your life for a season, a reason, and a purpose. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but it's true. You change. You are going to be 20 versions of yourself from the moment of your birth, right? At least. And in all of those versions, there lays a specific type of need that changes and evolves over time. My mentees are not forever. My mentors, sometimes they go in one place or another in my life. You know, I still keep communication, but I utilize it more sometimes so than others. And so I think that it's all about the place you are and what you need. And it is all about what you're trying to achieve. And based on that, it's where you go to that library of amazing people that you, of course, always will like carry with you and you'll check in with and you'll be there for them. But it's about, it is true. Sometimes you're going to reach out to some other people more than others, depending on the stage and the place you are in. You can never have enough people. We all need to be together. We all need to uplift together, and we all need to like just fight the battle together, right? That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah. And, once you can build that vulnerability with your mentor and get to a place where they can give you constructive feedback that can really help you grow, because you trust that this is feedback that is going to help you grow, right? You're going to get so much feedback from your peers, coworkers, and some of it might be helpful and some of it might not. But especially if you find the right mentors and sponsors who really just want to support your journey, if they give you feedback, it's coming from a place of love and growth.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like, I agree. And this week, for example, like I had like tough feedback, but it was necessary and it was real. It was tough, but it was real, and I accepted it. And I reached out to Josie, and now we're like on a plan. Best way to find and approach a mentor, and the last question that we have, reach out to people, be authentic. The last thing that can happen is just that you get ghosted. But whatever, there's always going to be someone, and there's more people out there that want to help you than you know. Be authentic, approach, engage. Don't be like, hey, I need a mentor. Like, I like this about you. This is what I like about you, and this is how I align with you. This is where the relationship can intertwine. And I would love to therefore set up a conversation if you're interested of mentorship. You can even be people you work with, because that's why community is real. Like, it can be reaching out to the Slack groups of the community or this community or the groups that we have. So, mentor events a sponsor. Mentor is the person that helps you be a soundboard and provides you their expertise to educate you. A sponsor is someone that is going to vouch for you. But I think that terminology is not mutually exclusive, because Josie has sponsored me to get jobs. Josie has sponsored me for many other things. I have sponsored people as well. I think that, it is depending on, it's up to you of how you want to classify someone, on what purpose you want to have that relationship serve. We're approaching time, so that's all we have to say. And I want to leave it back to the great host here. Thank you.
Oh, I had one last thing to add about mentoring. Going back to Daisy's question of how do you find a mentor, right? It's about networking. Like, Virginia and I actually met, I think it was 4 years ago. I was giving a women 5 years ago now. Wow, it's been a while. 5 years ago, I was giving a talk at Women Who Code Cloud up in San Francisco. And we just started chatting. We were networking. We were chatting. We ended up, it was after the event. We're like, let's go out to dinner. We had dinner, and Virginia stayed in touch with me. She kept reaching out, and hey, that built the relationship, right? And so I think sometimes people think like, oh my gosh, I can't walk up to somebody whose title is director or VP, and they're not going to have the time, want to spend the time of day with me. And it's like, guess what? We like to talk about ourselves. You get us talking, like, we're not crazy people like who don't want to talk to anybody, right? I think people get afraid to talk to me sometimes. I'm like, I am a freaking open book if you ask me a question.
Yeah, I cannot talk enough. Please use me. The girls in the audience that know me, they know that. So just get me talking and I'll go on forever. You told me to stop.
But yes, I know it's after time, but I wanted to drop in that like one last nugget there.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and hand it off to Lourdes, and I'll share screen.
And actually, hopefully everybody had a wonderful time because that was really enjoyable. I really loved it. And then this is just a friendly reminder of the upcoming events that we have. February 23rd, we have the What I Learned from the First, the Few, the Only, and then on March 10th, it is International Women's Day. So
Hey, let's celebrate. That's going to be amazing. All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
thank
Thank
you.
Thank you so much.
everyone.
Yes. Let's see.
Daisy, do you want to stop the record?
Yeah, I'm gonna stop recording.